Hi everyone, I'm Evangeline right here at etrailer. Since every bike rack fits every car differently, today we're focusing in on how the Kuat Piston ION fits on the 2021 Ram ProMaster 2500. Now, since this is very oftenly used as a camper van filled with your bed, your kitchen, everything you need for camping, where do you put your heavy electric bikes? Well, on a bike rack off the back. And the Kuat Piston ION is ideal for your extreme situations with a 100-pound weight capacity. Now, there are some things with the ProMaster worth considering, like with these large doors, oftentimes you have to think about how your bike fits and how your bike rack fits as well. So let's go take a look at it with trying to open up the doors. We don't need our ramp here just yet, but we will put that to the side and then come over to the bike rack. Now there is a safety knob on the ION, and that's gonna be something you engage or disengage depending on if you are driving or need to tilt something out. So we're gonna tilt this away, turn that safety knob to open, pull on this lever, and then bring this rack down. Now to open up the door, I can already say that this won't have as much space with this bike rack on there, but it'll have a little bit to sneak around to grab whatever's inside. So the door is blocked by the tilted away rack right there. So that is gonna be a downside to this specific setup. Now, the Kuat does have some hitch adapters. However, with the Piston ION, to really get the most out of this bike rack, they really do recommend not using any adapters with it. Another thing to look at too is the handlebars of your bikes. So I have this mountain bike here with some longer handlebars. In fact, I measured them at around 29 inches long. And we have a little bit of contact with the van, especially as we're really going along hitting those potholes and speed bumps. So what I'd actually recommend is if you have a longer handlebar than this, try to make sure that your bike is on the outside as well as all the bikes on the inside. I personally would put a pool noodle or a rag around the handlebar to minimize any movement there against the glass. But yeah, with all that being said, that's just something to know in terms of fitment. Every bike rack will have that clearance issue with the van, no matter what, unless you have a swing away adapter. The way this holds onto the bike though, I really like that. We have our front wheel mount and we have our rear wheel mount, zero frame contact. And when you want to take the bike off, there is a special trick to it. So I remove this strap here in the back, and then once that strap is removed, I then open up this rear mount by pressing this lever and keeping that press as I bring this all the way down to the ground. Now this bike rack comes with its own ramp, which is awesome, especially with this van and the height. That is super helpful. So the ramp is just gonna stay over there. And this front wheel mount is what has been holding up this bike through this whole process. So I'm gonna hold onto the bike with one hand. I'm gonna press this lever down here to slightly disengage. I'm gonna push the bike forward with that hand, that first hand. And then now that our bike is loose, I can then ramp the bike down just like that. So picture this, if you had a 100-pound bike, this process is so much easier compared to having to lift the bike up and onto the bike rack. We'll just bring this bike down. And this process is helped out by the design of the tray. You can see how there's this chock for both the front wheel and the rear wheel, and those chocks are adjustable for your different bike sizes. Those all work together to make sure you have the most secure fit around your bikes no matter what. We're just gonna put this strap back in. And something I would like you to note as I put this mount back in is that that strap can sometimes get in the way when you're securing the mount, so just make sure that it is centered just like that, and then you don't have anything to worry about. All right, so folding the rest of this bike rack up, I guess down. Now this ramp here is not attached to the bike rack, so make sure you just toss this back into your van when not in use, and that way it's ready for next time you need it. Let's talk about measurements and dimensions. So when this is behind your vehicle, you're gonna have a little bit of extra space you have to consider and a little bit of extra clearance. So we saw when using the ramp how steep that angle was, and that's because we have a ground clearance of 24.5 inches from the bottom of the rack to the ground, and where the bike was sitting, that was 28 inches. So that's over 2 feet of height that our bike is lifted up. Definitely something worth considering, and why having an included ramp is super helpful. The next is the length this rack sits out past the vehicle. So I measure from the bumper to the end of that lever, and that's gonna be 32.5 inches. There's something to think about when you're parking, things like that, how much space you have. Now with this van, you're already gonna be a larger vehicle on the road, so that's just something extra. Another thing I like to talk about too is taillight visibility, license plate visibility. So if I fold this rack up against the van, full visibility of our taillights still and of our license plate. So I'm not worried about that at all. Now when your bikes are on there, you do cover a little bit of your license plate and your taillights. So if you are going through an area where you know they're going to be super strict about taillight and license plate visibility, you can check out the light bar and license plate add-on brackets for the Piston ION, just to help out with that. Now whenever you are driving, make sure that safety knob is in the locked position. That will prevent tilting this rack away or moving it or folding it up. And that all works together to give you that extra strength and that extra weight capacity. If you need that extra weight capacity, the Kuat Piston ION with its 100-pound capacity is definitely the way to go. However, the Piston ION does require a little bit more touch points, a little bit more time it takes to load the bike up and to take the bike down. So if you don't quite need that weight capacity, you might enjoy the Kuat Piston series, where you can get the Piston Pro or the Pro X, and those are super easy to load and unload your bikes. But with this specific van, a lot of people want to make sure that they have a heavier duty bike rack, especially one that is RV rated, and the Kuat Piston ION is designed for those specific scenarios. I really wish there was a little bit more clearance with opening up the door. Even with the bikes off, I wasn't quite able to get clearance around that tray. So we weren't able to fully open that door without extending this bike rack out. So hopefully this video just showed you that. If you had questions about how it fit, this video answered it. And if it didn't, well, please reach out to us. We love hearing questions or even seeing situations where people are using this for their own journeys. Today though, this was a look at the Kuat Piston ION on 2021 Ram ProMaster 2500.